Paul, what do you make of this?
Well, I think that it's not as simple as we look at it.
Okay.
And it's placed in the whole new world economic order and the terms of trade, unfair terms trade to Africa and all of that. Because the whole world, or most of the developing countries, the countries in the South, are looking and chasing the same investments from around the world. Africa especially is important because Africa is said to be the next frontier.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of drive to attract global money and global resources. That is why all of these indexes over the last 25 years have come. Democracy Dividends, Transparency International, and all of those indexes that they used to measure, including best and worst performing currency, best and worst performing economy. All of those indicators are to signal investment and money, which is the most important thing for the world.
Right.
And to signal where the money goes to. Now, when some of these analyses are being done by these internationally recognized companies that we all subscribe to, Africa needs to look at it within the context that Akufo-Addo put it the other day. And Akufo-Addo was concerned when month after month, the rating of Ghana has gone down, it's B minus, it's B plus, then it's dropped to this, it's dropped to that, indicating all kinds of things to investors. Domestically, investors were also looking at these things, and that's the only resource that they have because we have not generated the data, and it's always the big issue. We are unable to generate data. I've said it time and again for those of us who live in Accra. If you ask the AMA that how many people use trotro from Medina to 37, they don't know. This is something you can get National Service boys to go and stand there and count. We don't know. If you go to London and say how many people use the underground today, they will give you a fair estimate. So because we don't have this data, we always have to succumb and subscribe to some international analysis that uses some regression analysis and data obfuscation and all of these things they do. Population is 30 million, and then they come up with these indications about your currency is this, your currency is that. Akufo-Addo made the point that Africa should begin to find its own indicators, those who work and produce this indicator. Africa should find its own. And this Fitch has tomorrow downgraded you. And sometimes these things have political connotations. They do this downgrade as a result of some issue. So if you share some good experience with Iran, for instance, you may come up for some of these things because on the indicators, your democracy dividend will go down because you're associating with Iran, you're associating with Russia, you're associating with... This is the point Akufo-Addo was making when he was lambasted by the opposition then that he is running down the economy and is now quarreling with international economic analysts. How does a Bloomberg publish Ghana's currency in April as the best performing currency? President John Dramani Mahama goes to Japan and cites it. And why did President Mahama cite it? Because he was talking to investors. These are the things investors want to hear. But it's not within our control to produce it. Somebody produces it from somewhere, yes, based on some analysis, but we don't get to know the whole story. And so President Akufo-Addo said, find your own Bloomberg. Let Africa find its own Bloomberg. And it sits in Accra, it sits in Lagos, it sits in Johannesburg, it sits in Cairo, and can properly run these events. If you ask the Ghanaian authorities, whether they were the Bank of Ghana people and all of those FIC people, whether they were part of the conversations and the analysis that brought this publication, I'm sure they all saw it on international media like we did. So it is time to go back to what Akufo-Addo said, because MPP can very well jubilate about this, but they jubilate about it at their own peril. Like the way NDC jubilated about Ghana being downgraded, and they were very excited about it. Today, it has happened to them. President Mahama just came from Japan. He left information with the Japanese that the Cedi is the best performing currency. The matter has been reported in magazines in Japan. International newspapers have captured it. You go on the Times Online, you may find it. And then somebody goes on Times Online today. He sees the Bloomberg story. Ghana is the best performing currency. Okay, oh wow, what's happening to Ghana? He flips through the Times Online and sees President Mahama says Ghana is the best performing currency. He quickly goes to check the dates. That it's not what the Ghanaian president says is the best performing. I just read that it's the worst performing. He said, oh, what dates? Oh, okay, this is earlier than this one. But it's in such a space of a short time. Some of those investors will head President Mahama. If they are hearing this, it might affect their decision to come to Ghana. Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, the foreign minister, has announced the 100 billion investment from Singapore. Now, the Singaporeans did that based on the presentation that was given to them by the president's team in Singapore. And one of the cardinal points of the presentation was that the Cedi, the local currency, is the best performing currency according to Bloomberg. And the investors made their decision on that. 2 days later, the investors are going to find that the currency that you said was the best performing is not just dropped a little bit, but it has come from best to worst in the world. So it comes back to the point. Our politics must begin to separate from certain things. Let's address each other's policy initiatives. And let's leave certain things as a Ghanaian matter. So that when the president talks about it, we don't take him to the cleaners on politics and says that you are running down the economy, you are blaming Fitch. Has President Mahama run down the economy since April to now? What are the major significant things that have happened in the economy that are so negative that the currency that was the best must now become the last? From number 1 among 153 countries, you have now become the last among 153 countries. I think what to say. In January, the Cedi was worse than it is today. In January, the Cedi was 15 towards 16. If today the Cedi is 13, there's still a gain. Year-on-year gain. Atufosun will tell you that the Cedi has gained 23% this year. How does a currency that has gained 23% between January and September be called the world's worst performing currency? So we have to, these things must show us that politics is politics, but we must take politics out of certain things and give credit to Akufo-Addo for visualizing the fact that the solution to these problems is that Africa must develop its own rating agencies.
But Paul, a lot of this capital that you're talking about, because you started your submission by saying that, look, bottom line is that we're looking for money. We're always looking for capital. We're looking for liquidity. We want investment, etc. Because we don't have it. We don't have enough. It's a separate debate as to whether we don't have enough. But let's just agree and proceed with the assumption that we don't have enough. And so we always have to attract capital from abroad. A lot of these investors, how many of them are Africans? That's number one. Two, if we have our own local rating agency, which is for Africa, the man who's sitting there in America, or say UK or France or wherever it is, to what extent would they trust the metrics that was, for instance, used in arriving at a certain data, based on which they can make a decision and say, okay, we're going to this country or that country within Africa? So for me, that's my question to you. I mean, if Africa comes up with this local rating agency, will these guys trust it?
Assuming that we didn't have the answer to the question is that we are not coming to create our own local rating agency just out of the blue. Right. We're going to develop the systems. We need systems that allows us to be able to forecast these things in a more clinical manner. Because if you can't do it, Bloomberg will do it for you. So there are some countries like, say, Mali or Chad, those unstable countries. Today, if you ask the United Nations that what is the population of some of these countries, say Chad, Mali, Burkina Faso, or some of these countries that are unstable, the United Nations is going to guess. They're going to say that, oh, Burkina Faso, it is estimated by the BBC that the population of Burkina Faso is X. They used to say that about Ghana. But if today you ask that what's the population of Ghana, because we have developed the systems and every 10 years we conduct a population census, it will say that the Ghana Statistical Service says the population of Ghana is this, because we have a Ghana Statistical Service that is publishing these things. We don't have a Bank of Ghana that is adequately resourced with the systems to be able to provide the data. Bloomberg will not do it for America because the Federal Reserve knows America. The Federal Reserve knows everybody in New York. They have their address. They know what they are doing. They know how much Starbucks sold in New York today. The Federal Reserve knows that. They know how much McDonald's was sold in Tennessee today. They know it. So Bloomberg is not going to write it for them. They have the information. So the investor comes and they says that, okay, in Accra, there are 5 million people. Business conducted in Accra every day is about 1.6 billion from the Ghana Statistical Service. Amount of business done in Makola market is this amount of. So when you have that, then Bloomberg cannot but to rely on it. But if you don't have it, then you are going to have Bloomberg make an intelligent guess that, okay, if you look at Ghana, if you look at this, you look at that, we think that, and then they publish it. And that is where you can have gaps and spaces where you can have political connotations coming into this. So the point Akufo-Addo was making is not just simply get our rating agencies. Let's develop the statistics, the data. If you ask today, that what's the population of the University of Ghana? The University of Ghana knows it. They actually know it. Yeah. So nobody's going to guess it because the University of Ghana website will tell you that these are the numbers of the people in University. We want to know how many male, how many female at the University of Ghana today. The University of Ghana is aware. If you want to know how many people trade in Makola every week? The Bank of Ghana doesn't know. They don't know. Because they have not developed those mechanisms. How many people are using trotro in Ghana every week? They don't know. If the Cedi appreciates by 25%, what kind of business is it affecting? How many Awusa cocoa sellers are there in Accra? I'm not sure they know. How many watches sellers are there in Ghana? Is it difficult? District by district, count how many watches sellers are in this district. District count, and submit the thing to a central pool where we can tell how many watches sellers are in Ghana. So if there's a problem or there's something, prices are shifting within the context of watch buying, there's data to support it. But we don't have data. Yeah. And it's very critical. We have mobile phones, we have Ghana card, and that is why the Ghana card was an important step in bringing Ghana to development. But again, it became politics, and some people said, we will not take Ghana card, we want to eat kenke, and Ghana card is not good, and kenke is good, and all kinds of things. You see, we have to be serious in this country. The young people must be serious to demand this from the institutions of state. Right. Otherwise, we are always going to be counted by somebody sitting very far away, and he's going to tell you that your Cedi is performing. Oh, your Cedi is no longer performing. And everybody said, but how can a Cedi that was performing now become this? What is Bloomberg use? What is that? They are going to do statistics and that kind of thing. Okay. Let me come to Musa Dankwa on this one. Okay. Musa Dankwa has been able to predict elections correctly over the last 2-3, including Akwetia. Forget about the exit poll. If today, some people are looking for results of elections in Ghana, right, because of what he may have been able to establish, if he's able to do it for a long time, right, they will now say that pollster Musa Dankwa in Ghana says this, that. They will not sit in New York and say that the Ghanaian election, the way it's going, we are thinking that this and this and this is going to happen. So before you see CNN put the story and say, elections in Ghana in 92 are going on, blah, 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 blah. Now, you see CNN do a story and say, local stations in Ghana are predicting that so and so and so, because capacities have been generated. In 72 hours after an election, multimedia will know the results. City will know the results. That didn't used to be. Right. We had to wait to hear the results from BBC and things like that. Right. Or you have to go to Independence Square where they are putting some board on it. So we no longer reflect on these stories. It's the same thing with media and radio. When we were growing up, our parents used to get Ghana information from BBC. Yeah. When I was working at Joy FM and BBC decided to put up a channel on the FM stations, it was a bit of a discussion whether BBC were going to create competition or not. BBC, everyone was listening to BBC. If you listen to Joy FM in the afternoons these days, they have cut the BBC broadcast from 30 minutes to this, to that, and it's now very small. Why? Because there's local capacity to produce our local news. So if there's a funeral at the State House, we know that Metro TV will give a live coverage. We know that multimedia will give a live coverage. That didn't used to be. It's the same situation. Until we're able to develop our system so that it is reliable and we can make our own forecast about the economy, we will continue to have this Bloomberg says, and it's going to affect the money that is coming into Ghana and the rest of Africa. Right.